Be astonished, O ye heavens, and be horribly afraid, yea, be very desolate, saith the Lord. What he's saying, you see, is this. He says this spectacle is almost incredible. There's something horrible about it. Be horribly afraid, be horrified, he says. Don't you feel that it's something shocking? Stand back aghast. These are possible translations of these words. Why? Well, he says, this is such a monstrous spectacle. The way that these people have turned from the living God. Now then, that's his dramatic way of bringing out this extraordinary element of perversity that is ever one of the chiefest characteristics of sin. Let me put this to you. Let's take a look at it for a moment in general. It's worth looking at this, in general, in a kind of philosophical manner. It's an extraordinary phenomenon. Do you know, my friends, according to the Bible, the most extraordinary phenomenon in the world tonight is man himself, man in sin. There is no other phenomenon in the whole universe that is comparable to man. Look at the whole world, look at the whole of creation. You will find nothing so foolish in it as man in sin, rebelling against God. How? Well, let me put it like this to you. Sin is that which makes a fool of men. Sin is that which turns men into a kind of monstrosity. Be astonished, O ye heavens. At this, be horribly afraid. Yea, be very desolate, saith the Lord. At what? Well, at men rebelling against God and sinning. Man's a spectacle. Man's become a fool. Man's become a monster. In what ways? Well, in these ways. Sin, you see, introduces into men this extraordinary element of contradiction. Isn't that the thing that's most obvious about men today? What you make of men? Well, if you examine men truly, if you follow this line of investigation pressed upon us by the prophet, you'll be impressed above everything else by this extraordinary paradoxical element in men. He's a mass of contradictions. Look at what I mean. Look at men on the surface and you'll say, how great is man? And of course there is a real greatness in man. Look at his wisdom. Look at his understanding. Look at his knowledge. You can't deny that to men. You can't deny that to the 20th century men. Look at the grand discoveries he's made. Look at his genius and his brilliance in all these scientific investigations and discoveries. Look at the phenomenal advances in medicine and in the treatment of human sickness and disease. Look at the way in which man has been able to explore the distant parts of the world. This is genius. Man is a great being. No animal's ever been able to do anything like that. An animal just lives according to his instincts. He's governed by his desires. He's got a kind of mechanical law within him that makes him do what he does. But man rises above it all. And he has this great brain, this great knowledge, this understanding, and he's searched out mysteries, and he's able, even in a theoretical manner, to think in a most extraordinary way. That's all true about men, isn't it? Look at the achievements of the human race on the one hand, and you've got to stand back in amazement and say, what a piece of work is man! How noble in reason! How infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. That's what Shakespeare said about him. And if that was true in the Elizabethan era, how much more so now? Man, he's an amazing creature. But oh, alas, I can't leave it at that, can I? That isn't the whole truth about men. There's another side to men. What's the other side? Well, it's the side that you see in the world round and about you. Here is man with all this astounding genius and ability, but look at his world. Look at the misery. Look at the shame. Look at the sin. Look at the evil. Look at the tension. Look at the wars. Look at the destruction in the wars. This mass destruction. Look what he's proposing to do. Now it's the same. I'm talking about the same person. I'm talking about the same individuals. I'm talking about this great person that has searched into the depths and into the mysteries. There he is, but here he is also. He's glorious. He's infamous. He's wise. He's a fool. He's above the animals. He does things that animals never do. He's higher than the animals. He's worse than the beasts. Isn't that the truth about man? You see, as Jeremiah says here, man is a spectacle. He's a phenomenon. Be astonished, O ye heavens, and be horrified at this. Be horribly afraid and be very desolate, saith the Lord. But that is it. That is man as we see him tonight. This extraordinary element of contradiction. This paradox that is in him. And what heightens is this. That sin not only makes men like this a fool and a spectacle and a kind of monstrosity. Oh, what heightens is this, that he is a fool most of all in the matters that are of gravest and of greatest concern. It is when you come to the ultimate questions that you see the folly of men at its greatest. Now that is, I say, what heightens the paradox. Not just that he's a fool at certain odd points where they don't matter. No, it's much worse than that. And that is why this expression is right. It is something at which the heavens ought to be astonished. That man who is so marvelous in so many respects, when you really come down to the question of life and living, becomes an unmitigated fool. That's the phenomenon of men in sin. That's the thing that's most evident in the world tonight. That is what makes the heavens horrified and should fill us all with a sense of amazement. That is why we should all be aghast. But are we? Are you amazed and aghast at man in the 20th century? My dear friends, if we are not, we must be horribly blind. There must be something preventing our seeing things as they are, because this is the truth about us. Let me put it in another way to you. This element of sin in man, you see, does another thing to him. It makes him reverse what he does. Not only what he is, but what he does in these other spheres. I mean this. In most spheres in his life, in his business, in his profession, and all the rest of it, man is generally characterized by thought, by taking care, by exercising reason, by being cautious, by taking forethought. Oh, you know many men of whom this is true, don't you? You know men in professions, the great learned professions, men in business, men in industry. Put them onto their job, and those are their great characteristics. Wisdom, thoughtfulness, care, caution, making sure that they're taking the right action, forethought. We'll all agree that those are their characteristics. But you know, when you come to these vital matters, when you come to man in his relationship to God, what you find? Prejudice. He doesn't stop to think. He doesn't really give his mind to it. No, he jumps to conclusions. He starts with a ready-made idea. He knows everything before he's read a word. He's inherited it from somebody else, and he repeats it like a parrot. What's he governed by? He isn't governed here by the same element of calm detachment, quiet, cool investigation, caution before arriving at a decision. He says, rotten nonsense, stuff and nonsense. The opiate of the people, some stuff. Oh, all right for women and children. Isn't that how he speaks? What I'm trying to say is this, you see, that there are men who would never dream of taking a great business decision without saying, let me have the relevant data. Bring me every memorandum you can lay your hands on. Tell me, have we ever tried this before? Put all the evidence before me. He'd have it sifted, he'd have it collated. He said, I can't arrive at a decision before I am aware of all the facts. Quite right. But you know, there are many men, and we've all known them, and we still know them, who reject Christianity in toto. They've never read the Bible in their lives. They display their ignorance of it if you have a discussion with them. They don't even know their New Testament. They don't know their Gospels. Here they are saying there's nothing in Christianity, but they've never investigated it at all. Now, this is the element I'm bringing out, you see. This is the supreme tragedy of man. This is where he becomes a monster. That in this matter, which matters above everything else, he throws caution to the winds. He throws reason out through the window. He jettisons his own highest faculties. And he speaks like a fool. Prejudice is in control. You can hear them on the wireless and on the television almost whenever you like. If you went to them in their normal avocations and began to produce your theories, they'd smile at you and they'd say, "Now look here, my friend, I don't want your theories, I want facts." And yet when it comes to their whole view of men and of life and of death and of eternity and of God, they base their whole position on nothing but theories and suppositions. You hear them saying dogmatically that evolution is a fact, but it isn't a fact, and they know it isn't a fact. It's nothing but a theory. But they base their whole position on it, and on a mere theory, God is dismissed. Christ is not needed. Be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid, yea, be very desolate, saith the Lord.